ABC Sports presents, live in its 28th season, the Professional Bowlers Tour. From Merritt Island, Florida, it's the $140,000 Bowlers Journal Florida Open. In our first match, two-time Firestone champion Mark Williams of Beaumont, Texas, faces international star Amleto Monacelli of Venezuela. That winner will challenge Leroy Bornhop of St. Charles, Missouri. The semifinal game will feature the 1988 PBA Player of the Year from Seattle, Brian Voss, and our tournament leader, returning to the tour last week after a 5-month absence, 11-time winner Pete Weber of Florissant, Missouri. That's our field today on the Professional Bowlers Tour. Yes, in the Merritt Island area, there is plenty of room for wildlife, and yes, there's a lot of space for fun. Thousands come here to enjoy the weather and enjoy Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center not far away. But for this week, bowling has been king here at the Shore Lanes. It's our first visit to this establishment in this area, and we're delighted to be here for the finals of this great event. Because within the field of five, there's a tremendous amount of talent. There are contrasting styles. There are big names that won big tournaments, and it's going to be competitive right to the end. Speaking of competition, immediately following on ABC's Wide World of Sports, it's two parts today. First from Baltimore, ladies competition and the report on pairs competition at the United States Figure Skating Championships. And then from Vail, Colorado, at the World Alpine Ski Championships, a report on the women's giant slalom. That's immediately following Professional Bowlers Tour, 4:30 Eastern Time. Now, with two of the names that are in our field of five, here is my colleague, Nelson Burton, Jr.
Thank you, Chris. The two top protagonists in today's field are Pete Weber and Brian Voss. And first, Pete Weber, who is in the #1 position, who is returning after 4.5-month layoff for alleged improprieties out here on the Professional Bowlers Tour. You told me you were #1 last week, Peter, and yet you hadn't even bowled for 4 months. Tell me about it.
Well, I just, on my time off, I really took care of myself good, gained a little weight. Like I said last week, I'm back, and I'm ready to win.
Brian, you're the Player of the Year. Peter has never been Player of the Year. You're the single-season money leader. What do you have to say to this young upstart who's in the #1 position?
Well, I respect Pete's attitude. You know, you just got to believe in yourself like he does. And as a matter of fact, I demand that because we bowled doubles together in Las Vegas. I know he believes he's #1, but he knows I believe I'm #1. So I hope I win the first match and we get to see who's #1 today.
That's a good omen for today's match. Obviously, there's 3 other players, Chris, that have something to say about it. In 90 minutes from now, we'll know who is at least #1 for this week, and there's a lot of money at stake. Let's take a look.
Yes. Total of $140,000, 23 to the winner, 12 for second, 8, 6, and 5. And when you consider Pete Weber, so young, 11 championships already, and then Brian Voss, who has won 6, including the United States Open and the PBA National. If they get to the final match head-to-head, it'll be something. And so will this first game with 27-year-old Amleto Monacelli from Barquisimeto, Venezuela. He has a unique style. He was 4th in this event held in Venice last year. International, it is indeed, because he won his first title in 1987, the Japan Cup. Here's the first shot, first match. Nice little rainbow.
I think that's aptly put, Chris. A rainbow. We can see a lot of that today. Mark Williams, also a player who plays the wide sweeping hook, and they're also playing the extreme outside line.
6 titles, including 2 Firestones. Oh, it breaks up the split. Left with what has become in the last few weeks often seen 4-pin.
It's amazing that the little bit of lane condition change we've seen on the Professional Bowlers Tour this year, in other words, shorter oil, more hooking lanes, has not allowed the players to trip that 4 out.
So it is a spare for Mark Williams, Beaumont, Texas, 31 years old, 6'1", 180 92 pounds. It's his 19th television appearance here on our series. Strike in the second frame for Mark Williams. Monacelli is back up, and he was married in December of last year. And his bride, Teresa, is here watching him in person, along with his brother, also a pro bow, Rodolfo.
Rodolfo Jr., Rodolfo Sr., the father of these two young men, and Amleto already in business with his father with 2 clothing stores in Barquisimeto area. His father got his big start in the business of international formal clothing, tuxedos, as you may say, and has done quite well. Now here's his son.
And with that double, his son goes into a 10-pin lead here at Shore Lanes, Merritt Island, Florida, right near Melbourne, Florida.
The little 5.5, 6-step delivery of Amleto Monacelli. Look at that arm swing. His hands wide open at the top, cocked as he comes down through the pivot area. Now watch his right foot drive in, arm swing next to his body. And that famous, as I like to call it, the lawnmower release. It looks like he's starting that little bitty lawnmower I have at home, and it's amazing he doesn't get his elbow sore, but when you can release the ball like that, you get plenty of torque on it, plenty of power. It's a matter of control as you see him using the full grip.
Amleto had one of 5 300 perfect games during the week here in this tournament.
Get up, ball! Get up!
All right. Crossing over to Caracas, getting that one.
Well, we call that out on the tour unconscious competence. The shot got away from Amleto, crosses over, gets one of the greatest breaks you can in professional bowling. A Brooklyn strike to keep the string going. Now Mark Williams trails by 20.
High hit, leaving the 3-6-10. And the 6 all of a sudden faded from the scene, as you see.
The 3-10 split, as we've said before, is a almost must-spare type at this level of bowling, the top of the line, professional level. You at least have to make this 50% of the time to be competitive.
Let's get a profile replay.
A wonderful style he's developed with the help of our Olympic coach, Freddie Borton. He has a slightly cocked wrist. Look at that position as he goes into the slide area. Hip inside, nice high follow through, and really low at the knee. At 90-degree angle with the knee, 90-degree angle with that foot sliding into the foul line. That's something that we can all strive for.
Last year on our telecast, 7 times, 1-2. Okay, from this area, the maiden voyage of the Air Force's new Delta II rocket from Cape Canaveral, launch pad 17 tomorrow in this area where it all started. Patrick Air Force Base.
And the championship pair, 29 and 30 here at Shore Lanes. Here's the oil pattern we're using this week. There's oil down to 21 feet with a machine that actually oils each individual board. Then it's a little lighter down here. Light in this area, heavy oil in this area right here. It's dry back here. Now the line the players are playing is the extreme outside line, starting right about the center lane, going out to right along the channel, a sharp break into the 1-3 pocket. Makes for some exciting action, Chris.
Really does. And here's the man that's strung 3 now, getting ready to shoot in the 4th frame, a 20-pin lead over veteran Mark Williams. Amleto Monacelli, 8-year member of the PBA, 2 titles, Japan Cup and the Showboat Invitational. For winning that first title, he was second 6 times. It's his 4th tournament since his honeymoon.
Get in there!
And after perfection, this. 3, 4, 6, 7, 10.
This is a shot we saw last week was Ferraro, I believe. Dave Ferraro had a chance to make this, and what you have to do is get the ball over in the 3-6 area, slide the 3-pin over into the 4-7 area. Last week the 3-pin went around the 4 and 7 pins, and he got a count of just 8 out. Let's see if Amleto can handle it a little bit better.
So after 3 in a row, it's an open frame for the Venezuelan, whom earlier he asked why he likes being married.
I think it's great. The reason why I got married because I was in love and I was missing her a lot while I was here. And a lot of times I just dropped a week. I just didn't want to board because I felt like I want to go home. It's a great company. She helped me a lot, and she made me think more straight, which is the better way to be out here.
Well, I think he speaks for all happy husbands. Nicely put.
And he comes back after that wide open split that he got in the 4th frame, where he went from a 20-pin lead to a 1-pin deficit, recovers with a strike in the 5th, but he has really opened the door for a man who knows how to win. Mark Williams leads by 1, strike up.
So our match is close again. We asked Mark how he had developed his various styles. At the moment, we don't have that answer. It's back there, and we'll get it up for you very soon. Very serious man from Beaumont.
Uses a slight pushing motion in his release. Notice how he comes back to the top of his swing, unlocks the elbow, then pushes through the target. Excellent way to be accurate.
The man that won his first title in 1984 is now taken the lead. Monacelli, though, has a strike up, shooting in the 6th frame. Careful preparation.
A little rosin in the finger holes. Obviously, you have to wipe that off. You can have nothing on the outer surface of the bowling ball that would change the roll of the ball or leave any residue on the lane surface. So Monacelli ready to go. Let's see if he can recover from that disastrous 4th frame.
All right. So now he trails by only 11 as we look at his bride, Teresa.
And here's a picture of a camera angle, and obviously you can see Monacelli's ball just digging into the 1-3, carries out the 5 and 9. All strikes are good, but that one's even a little better. That was perfect. All 10 pins in the pit, and I like that shot. Thank you, Ned Simon, Carol Eddy.
And the cameraman that listen to what they say. We've got the best at ABC.
Monacelli can cut the lead to 1 pin here in the 7th with 1 more strike.
So he adds 10 to his lead now. Amleto, Monacelli. We're in our first match. More of it after this. It's a capacity crowd here at the Shore Lanes, Merritt Island, Florida. Surrounded on one side by the Indian River and on the other side by the Banana River. And of course nearby the Atlantic Ocean. As you see, both professionals with 3 baggers up, and shooting is Williams. 7th frame. Now he leads by 11. Now we're going to get the answer to the question how he had developed his various styles.
My first 4 years on tour, I've relied predominantly on a slow breaking ball. In 1984, I met Fred Borton, who's our U.S. Olympic coach. He taught me different releases. He helped me with my timing to where I can throw the ball harder, throw the ball slower as I need to. And since then, I've won 6 tournaments, and I'm looking for my 7th tournament win today.
All right. Furrowed brow, dead serious, Mark Williams. Well, now he's put together 5 in a row and putting the pressure now on the Venezuelan Amleto Monacelli, who has a 3-bagger, and he's going to perform here in the 8th frame of our first match. The winner to meet Leroy Bornhop of St. Charles, Missouri, then Brian Voss, and then our tournament leader, Pete Weber.
Monacelli, who is just drying his thumb hole, obviously almost in the 80 degrees once again down in the Florida area. It's a little bit warmer in the building. We saw heat become a factor last week in the Budweiser Open down in Don Carter Lanes. It's also a factor here, and Monacelli is in a desperate situation, needs to strike.
Almost in the channel, hanging there, bending in, 4 in a row. Now it's 11 pins separating these two pros.
Talk about high-scoring matches through 8 frames. Monacelli has a potential 269 game, and I'll say 259, and Mark Williams can go 270. So Monacelli, it would behoove him to keep striking, especially here in the pivotal 9th frame.
Monacelli taking most of his time off the approach in preparation. And once on, big 9th frame strike. 1 pin lead by Williams, who's up and ready.
Going back to that little extra time taken by Monacelli, I have seen him rush a few times, and I think he's doing well taking a little extra times. I think most of the players usually, as Monacelli contemplates the job in front of him, most of the players who take too much time tighten up, but not so Monacelli. Now, here's Williams' 9th frame.
Stringing 6 now. The man that won the Firestone in '85 and again last year.
Right now, Mark Williams going at a 250 pace. Monacelli at a 239 pace. There is a possibility of a tie match here. If Williams does not strike on the next 2 balls. We could have our first tie of the season.
Beautiful perfection as Leroy Bornhop continues to warm up. You hear the pin fall. And also Brian Voss in our number 2 position is staying loose.
The PBA has added and enhanced the enjoyment for the fans and the bowlers alike with some extra large scoreboards, which we saw last week and are being used again this week. And the situation for Williams as he checked those scoreboard is a strike here, he wins the match. If not, he can either lose or tie.
And would you believe a 10 pin on the left lane in this torrid battle between Monacelli and this man, Mark Williams.
The soft 10. Mark Williams goes a little bit wide. The ball finishes late. The 6 pin obviously doesn't get up and smack the 10 pin. So now Mark Williams can finish with 259. Monacelli can tie 259 with 3 strikes.
What an exciting finish to our very first match head-to-head live from Shore Lanes in Merritt Island, Florida. So his task, he knows it, as Bo related it to you, needs 3.
3 strikes to tie. A tie would initiate a 2-frame roll-off. Williams would throw the first shot on the left-hand lane, sit down. Monacelli would bowl the 9th or similar to the 9th and 10th frames coming up on the right-hand lane. But first, he must strike on each individual shot.
Beautiful loft out under the lane. Great tempo, and Teresa and his brother Rodolfo love it.
Well, this is a side of Monacelli I have never seen, Chris. Whether it's the marriage or maturity or combination of both, Amleto is playing a cerebral game out there using the great natural talents that he has. For the first time, I've seen him really be all he can be. Win or lose this match, he'll look at this one as a great, great performance. His job still is to strike on this ball, 1 additional strike, and we would have a tie.
Shot for a tie and a roll-off, and all Mark can do is join you and watch.
Well, this shot is similar to a last ball in a 300 game, and we've had this situation only once so far in the 1989 PBA season. Remember when Del Ballard had finished, Steve Wunderlich came up in the 10th frame at the Quaker State, needing a strike in the 10th, 11th, and 12th shots to tie. At this juncture, Wunderlich got a 6 count, went on to defeat. Let's see if Monacelli has a different fate.
He asked for and received a re-rack on the right lane. Here it is. The 9 goes out. 2-frame roll-off. Wow, they tied at 259. 11 strikes for Monacelli, 8 for Williams.
This is Monacelli's one of his finest shots. He raised his hands in the air when he threw this ball and almost got cut off with a solid 9. Look at Mark Williams has got to wonder what's happening. Here the 2-pin comes off, the 4-pin comes around and gets the 9. That would have just been an awful, heartbreaking, bad break if Monacelli had left that. It would have left really a taint on his confidence or even his luck factor. Now we're into sudden death. 2 frames. The first shot.
So Mark wasn't too shaken up, although his ball crossed over. He still got that first strike. Now Monacelli. 11 strikes for Monacelli. And shooting at 258, matching his opponent's score.
Mark Williams, the last time he was in a tie was last year at the King Louis. He tied Leroy Bornhop 212 at that tournament, and Palmer Fahlgren went on to win that one. So let's see what happens with Monacelli. Consider this the 9th frame, first shot, match all even.
We're still even. All even. Nelson mentioning Palmer Fahlgren. Today he is our scorekeeper. Now a Floridian resident and a player on tour.
You see Amleto Monacelli watching off the oil, wiping off the oil or conditioner. A little extra rosin. He has to wipe that off. Dutifully does. Make sure that thumb hole is nice and dry, and if indeed these players would tie after this roll-off, we just re-rack it and start it again, a second roll-off. 10th frame, or consider it the 10th, it's all even.
Amazing. Looking at some foreign substance on the right of the approach. Not anywhere near the area he would be using, but nevertheless, great eyesight, great hand-eye coordination, these bowling professionals. Tremendous.
Monacelli with 10 consecutive strikes, starting in the 5th frame of the initial match. Strung 8 in a row to finish that. Has strung 2 in a row in the sudden death roll-off.
Couple of pros that love this championship pair. They crossed it twice. Monacelli averaged 202. Williams 195 during the week.
Great shots by Monacelli in the clutch, and you got to think of Mark Williams. Mark has been sitting on the bench, and he's only thrown 1 shot, an errant shot that luckily crossed over to the Brooklyn side for a strike, while Monacelli has been up here throwing strikes. Monacelli finished with 6 in a row, has had 6 strikes thrown, while Mark Williams has only thrown 1. Monacelli can do nothing but tie if he strikes again.
All right. He's made of the right stuff. This is an area where they're made of the right stuff. All the many astronauts that have passed through Cape Canaveral. Though the only space shot I saw was that of Gene Cernan's here, when he became the last man to walk on the moon. They're true grit, aren't they?
No doubt. And this man has to be now. He needs 3 strikes to tie. The same situation Monacelli was in earlier.
High hit.
It's over.
All but the 7-pin, and in a bruising battle, without any punches being thrown, is Monacelli. Now we'll meet Leroy Bornhop. The 8th frame shot of Leroy Bornhop. Like Monacelli, after an open in the 7th frame while we were away, Bornhop with a strike. There's Pete Weber, our tournament leader. Only his 2nd tournament of 1989, and looking strong.
Leroy for the 10-pin to maintain a 13-pin lead through 8 frames.
And again, for those of you who don't understand why we bowled through, we have a 90-minute time segment prior to Wide World of Sports. And needless to say, we need to get our programming in 90 minutes. And because of a 2-frame roll-off after a tie game, that took more than the usual amount of time. So we try to make it up so we can bring you all the action live.
Big shot for Monacelli. 8th frame, trails by 13, has 2 in a row working, but more important to take advantage of that lucky strike he had in the 7th. A very, very key shot.
And then there was the 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10.
Chris, pick a name for that. Well, I've never seen that split, hardly ever. What do we want to call that? Let's take a name for it, as you needs to get the ball over here in the 3-6 zone and obviously hit some pins over in the 4-7 zone. Let's call that a buzzard. How's that sound?
I like it.
A buzzard split. 4 pins after hitting the head pin.
It shocked the machine so much that its marking system fouled up. Oh! Well, that was half a buzzard anyway. Golly. After such perfection in the first match, 11 strikes to bring about a tie.
Monacelli's just like a bad round in golf. He can't avoid the double bogeys. He had that big open frame in the 5th frame of the first match, and here in the 5th frame he's had another big open, and once again here in the 8th frame he had a 4-pin split. Really unusual to hit the head pin and only get 4 pins. Now he has a possible 192, Bornhop going at a 205 pace. Monacelli must strike.
Left the 3, 6, 10.
With his hands spread wide, he was appealing to something, as Bornhop now in the excellent position, wiping a little perspiration off those glasses, a little steam. But he has this match well in hand, as the best Monacelli can do is 182. Bornhop can just go through the motions for that, and he'll go on to meet Brian Voss.
So here is Bornhop, first telecast here in '88, only his 6th overall. So we have an 8-10 on the right lane.
An interesting 8-10 split. Most 8-10s you feel are by a dead ball rolled, but what happens here is he gets a wall shot. And what he has to do is, I would take the 10-pin and try to bounce it out, Chris, almost like making the 7-10, and hopefully get a break, as he has kept Monacelli in the match.
He tried. This is our 2nd match.
Right now for Leroy Bornhop, as he looks to the side to the overhead telescore, he needs a mark of any type to lock up the match. Another open frame, and Monacelli could clutch it out with a couple of strikes, and still an outside possibility of our 2nd consecutive tie in the championship round. But it can only happen if Leroy opens here in the 10th.
The shot on the left lane of the championship pair. Dangerously close to the channel, and Bornhop is meeting the challenge. And after realizing that Monacelli had fired a 259 to tie and then a 60-40 win in the roll-off, had to be a lot of pressure on this 28-year-old.
Leroy needs 1 pin, 2 shots, no problem. Obviously, his wife's happy. He's going on to meet Brian Voss. And you know what? Nobody has won 2 consecutive matches in the last 2 weeks. We saw a different winner each game last week. We've had 2 different winners in our first 2 games this week.
So now Bornhop will advance against Brian Voss. Monacelli, a check for $6,000 for his week's work. We'll be back.
The reason that women often get taps in the pocket and don't strike as often as they like lies within the wrist. Many women just do not have the strength to hold the ball in the proper power position throughout the arm swing. What happens, they push the ball away, but once the weight of the ball hits their hand, they let their wrist drop down like this. When you get back to that position, you don't have the lift at the foul line. It causes bouncing, inadequate roll, and apparently good hits don't carry strikes. Now, there's a device made that Joe's wearing that will really help all bowlers that have that problem. It's simply this. It's a wrist device with a strong backing. It keeps the wrist and hand underneath the bowling ball, so when you get down to the release position, you're in the proper position to get enough roll to consistently strike. Joe, how about throwing a shot, and let's see how that wrist device works. The teams from the Midwest.
Exciting afternoon on ABC. And hate to say we projected that, but it was getting too close, Bo.
Too close, and in bowling parlance, that's sending it out too wide, and it drifted off into the moat. You see his ball hanging there about 45 feet down the lane, 50 feet. Law of gravity takes over. See you later. A 0, the same as a foul.
I think we have any people in the audience that have had that happen to them.
I'm sure he's gaining a lot of fans that can empathize with that shot.
Including me.
Well, I think we've all been there.
Yes.
Tough shot to recover from, too, under this pressure. Make that spare. Try not to pull it after that happens.
And is robbed. A 9. And the 7th left a 310. Converted it. Then came up with a strike in the 8th. He's leading by 39. 8th frame now for Bornhop. So an 8-10 and the most unusual game, semifinal game, the winner to meet Pete Weber.
Adios, Leroy Bornhop. If Leroy doesn't get lucky, bounce this spare out, the best he will be able to shoot will be 163, and he will not beat Brian Voss at all with 163.
So we start out with a tie at 259. Williams and Monacelli. Monacelli winning 60-40 in a 2-frame roll-off. And then the next game was 202 to 171, won by Bornhop.
Well, if you were a mathematician and you went on a sliding scale, the next game is going to be about 80 or 90. Game over. 3-6-10. Game over. The best Bornhop can do is 153. Brian Voss is locked into 145. Voss has to just throw one ball, and he has to hit a couple of pins in 2 frames. So time to go back and get a cold bud and come back and watch the championship match. It's going to be Voss against Weber.
Pete Weber with 11 titles. Voss has 6. So now to throw this ball and be the winner from the number 2 position, the winner of the game, not the title. Okay, Brian Voss will meet his doubles partner, good friend, but fierce competitor, Pete Weber. That'll be next. Thank you very much, Frank. And 3 winners, 3 games. Voss 214, 6 strikes. Bornhop 152. Now a dream match between Pete Weber and Brian Voss. Here's a look at the Budweiser Kingpin standings coming into this tournament. Randy Peterson in first place with 432 points. Budweiser sponsoring a $50,000 pointless competition which will run through the winter and spring tours. Players finishing among the top 24 will be awarded points in each Budweiser-sponsored events where they will be doubled. So the two finalists here in the Bowler's Journal Florida Open continue to practice. It's a capacity crowd here. And this is a match that they have really waited for, hoping that Voss could get in against Weber. And what a comeback by Pete Weber. Only his second tournament of '89, and here he is, the tournament leader. There you're looking at him. The medallion dangling there indicating a treatment center where he spent time in making his comeback.
And now the reigning number one against the self-proclaimed number one.
Okay, doubles partner, take that. That's Voss. Now it is 26-year-old Pete Weber, 5'7", 145 pounds, 10 years, BBA, 11 titles, including the '88 U.S. Open. Stuff on that ball, and
that was some shot, Chris. First time back, as the great Carmen Salvino would say, as you see his farm, Weber popped his jellies on that one. He waited for that ball. He got that high swing, and right here is where if you're nervous, you're going to jump at it. He waits, lets that swing happen, has the high follow through, and he just destroyed that rack. Let's see if he can maintain that tempo through 10 frames, because he's going to need it against Voss.
44th television appearance. High hit, leaving a 610 on the left lane, which in practice, Bo, you noticed that Voss was hitting the left lane.
It's been the lane that has decided the matches so far in our championship round, the left lane. Weber struggling, going high on his first shot, and it was slightly errant shot, so maybe not a real indicator. Setting a record with money earned. Bowling last year, $225,485. All but the 7. Something to consider as we watch this match develop. Remember, Randy Peterson last week opted for the, as you see the pin action here, Voss's ball coming in light, the 5 going over towards the 7 doesn't do the job. Randy Peterson, on the same type of lane condition, moved inside and just played a nice, safe match in his victory over a confused Dave Ferraro last week. Let's see if either one of these players go for that type of strategy.
So after 2 frames in this battle between friends and competitors, we're all even.
As Weber looks at the rack, making sure that the pins are on spot. Equilateral triangle, all 10 pins 12 inches apart, base to base. He's making sure as he squeezes on that rosin that they're set right on spot in this important situation. Now Voss, 3rd frame.
That was a left lane strike by Voss.
What Voss has done to conquer the left-hand lane, instead of trying to play more hook and softening it up, he moved to the right and threw much harder. He was going at 19 miles an hour in the early going. He has sped up to as high as 22 miles an hour on some of his shots. That is the proper way to overcome a tough lane condition. Let's see Weber, how he reacts to Brian Voss's.
Oh, yes. One of his great ones. Answer to 2 questions. Is he in shape, and has he modified his hook ball, and why?
Well, as far as being in shape, I think I'm pretty much in shape. I've been really taking care of myself these past 4.5 months. And as far as the hook on the ball, my brother Rich has been watching the shows since the beginning of the year, and he's noticed that the people that are staying behind the ball and coming out of the ball clean are winning, and that's what I've been practicing on, and I'm here to win.
He means that.
And he's cut about 10 boards of hook off that bowling ball to conquer these little bit drier, shorter oil conditions on the Pro Bowlers Tour. And right now he can take the lead, 4th frame. The match is still even.
Walked away. He just thought he had it.
Well, Pete Weber's 2nd frame pulled the shot. That's when he went high and left the 6-10 spare. Here he went right through the shot, trying to take the early lead. Solid 10. This match, obviously, of 2 pretty equal combatants.
Okay, we're in our championship match, Merritt Island, Florida, on ABC's Professional Bowlers Tour. We'll be back. And while we were away, the score has changed drastically. As an open frame in the 4th, Voss leading the 4-6-7. Got them all but 1. Now trailing by 12, shooting in the 5th frame. We bowled through because we're running behind our 90-minute time segment. And now Voss with this one.
Voss having the same fate that we've seen many of the other top players have in the last 2 weeks, and that's struggling after winning a match. And Voss has left a fairly simple split. We haven't seen this missed in 2 weeks. Got to get the ball next to the 3-pin, bounce the ball into the 10, and he needs this to stay close in the match, or Weber will open up a 23-pin lead sitting on the bench.
All right. Great example of how to do it.
What basically has happened to the lane condition, we showed you at the top of the telecast, the oil was applied 21 feet, buffed to 41 feet. Now, with the warm weather, a lot of bowling, this oil or conditioner has drifted towards the back end of the lane. Now there's no hook area. Remember, we had 19 feet for that ball to make the hook to the pocket. Now maybe there's only 9 or 10 feet as that oil has drifted, and the players cannot handle that type of condition. When the oil's too far, it makes the condition very tough.
Again, a 10-pin.
And what a smooth shot he made here as you see the style that Pete has basically, what he says, learned from Mark Routh. High open hand at the top of the swing, then he drifts right with his foot, then brings that swing back into his body, and look at the angle of attack right out over the edge.
Okay. Pete Weber with 11 titles, his dad Dick with 26. He won one of our first telecasts back in '62. He won $4,000 in Puerto Rico. Today, the winner of this game will get 23.
And Chris, we're going to have another delay as Pete popped that 10-pin out on lane 30 when he shot it, and it's laying in the middle of the lane, and the magic fingers from the back end say, whoops. If things weren't slow enough today, we have an additional delay.
Part of the slowness coming from a tie at 2:59 in our first match, and then a 2-frame roll-off, which Monacelli won over Mark Williams 60-40. Okay. Bowling spectators, they'll applaud just about anything. They're terrific folks.
Well, there's not many things that would really bother a pro bowler, but it's action in front of the foul line down towards the pin area or in his peripheral vision that would bother him. So Pete made a wise decision, just kind of waiting till that was out of the way. Now, 6th frame, he leads by 11. Spare up.
Pretty sure of that one after the release. Pete Weber, tremendous amount of pressure after a suspension and coming back.
Tremendous momentum. He never blinked his eyes at all from the top of his arm swing till after the ball had passed over the target. That takes a lot of concentration to really put that much power into it and still be steady. Now Voss needs to bounce back.
Crosses over. That was a strike in the 6th frame of the championship game.
And a obviously confused Brian Voss, who wants to win this early tour showdown with one of his main competitors for that Bowler of the Year title that he currently holds, needs to get a strike here in the 7th. He's been all over the lane. Weber seems zeroed. Voss needs to put a little bit of pressure on him, and he can do that with a strike here in the 7th.
And only one pin separating these extraordinary professionals on the Pro Bowlers Tour. The title game, more coming up. Strike in the 7th. Now here in the 8th frame is left the 2-10.
Has to make this shot to stay in the lead.
Pete Weber, 6-month suspension, lifted 6 weeks early by the Commissioner Joe Antonori, suspended last September when he failed to show for the 3rd round in a tournament in Windsor, Ontario. Now Voss, his opponent.
Voss, who has had a lot of good things happen to him, but despite being confused in this match, he still has a chance to open a 13-pin lead, 8th frame.
Three in a row for the Player of the Year.
You reach back for a little extra here. Right now, Brian Voss going at a 2:08 pace. Pete Weber 195. As much as they've struggled here in the championship round in the last 2 games, a strike here in the 9th frame would be monumental for Pete Weber to overcome.
Beautiful strike. Seemed like he slowed down the pace a little bit in that 9th frame strike to make it 4 in a row and take a 23-pin lead.
We talk about the Sunday punch. Right there in the 8th and 9th frames. The match is not over, but Brian Voss reached back for all that Brian Voss has. Now Pete Weber has to do the same thing to stay close.
And as it happened before to Leroy Bornhop, the end of the channel.
Well, that's the 3rd time that's happened to Pete Weber, Chris. It happened in Las Vegas in 1985. It happened to him in Garden City, Long Island in 1983. And he says it doesn't really bother him psychologically. He throws the big power ball, and so the 3rd shot in the moat in the championship round for him in his career is not really disturbing. He stays in the match.
Incredible 26-year-old professional with 11 titles, the U.S. Open in '88, the 1987 Firestone, and his opponent with equally extraordinary credentials.
Well, that was just sent out. He's playing the last board. There's 39 boards on a bowling lane, and Pete obviously playing the last one, as we've seen other players today. Now he must strike on the next 2 shots to stay in the match. Our Voss will win.
So it's a 7-pin. Pete a little disgusted and naturally disappointed, having gained the tournament leadership coming into our telecast.
Pete Weber with a strike here in the 11th frame would finish 194. Voss, I'm sure, will throw the ball right down the center of the lane, not even take a chance of the ball going out wide and having one of those balls slip off the channel. 194. Now, Brian Voss, who really doesn't have it won yet. I would be awfully surprised, Chris, if he doesn't just throw this ball right down the middle. No chance. There he goes, right down the center. See you later. That's a winner.
Okay, Brian Voss has won his 7th PBA title, defeating a very close friend and doubles partner, Pete Weber, here in the Bowlers Journal Florida Open.